and William Van Allen, captain of the Eldridge, said that his ship had never been to Philadelphia. It was suggested that if Allende had seen what he thought was something strange happening to a ship in the Norfolk Naval Yard, it may have been nothing more sinister than a degaussing installation. An ingenious British innovation adopted by the US Navy during the war to protect ships from magnetic mines. It involved fitting a series of electric cables around the outside of the ship's hull from bow to stern. By running a measured current through the cables, it was possible to cancel out the ship's magnetic field. The equipment could be turned on while the ship was at sea in a combat area. If it worked properly, the ship would then be magnetically invisible to mines, although still clearly visible to the naked eye and detectable by radar or underwater listening devices. The US Navy later suggested that a misunderstanding of how degaussing functioned might well have given rise to the supposition that they were experimenting with total invisibility. But the story of the Philadelphia experiment refused to die down. The Navy's information officers became so exasperated at having to deal with constant inquiries that they resorted to putting out a standard statement claiming that the Navy had never conducted any experiments on invisibility either in 1943 or at any other time. The Navy also produced the Eldridge's log and war diary from the relevant period. This clearly shows that the destroyer was nowhere near either Philadelphia or Norfolk during the period in question. Throughout the 1960s, journalists and other investigators made repeated attempts to track down the mysterious Carl Miguel Allende. But no one could find him. Had he even existed in the first place? It began to look as if whoever had contacted the late Dr. Jessup in 1956 with his rambling account of a disappearing warship had pulled off an astonishing hoax. But in 1969, Allende, whose real name was Carl M. Allen, appeared at the offices of the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization. He claimed that after reading Jessup's book, he'd been so frightened he'd invented the story of the Philadelphia experiment. Later, however, Allende denied making such a confession. He insisted once more that he really had seen the Eldridge disappear when he was an 18-year-old deckhand on the Furuseth, but by now, no one believed him. Allende had left the Merchant Navy in 1952, taking various casual oil drilling jobs. When he was eventually tracked down by journalists and authors, he was adamant about what he had seen, although vague and evasive about the details. He died in a Colorado nursing home in 1994. To this day, no one really knows whether his extraordinary claims were true, or if he was just an attention seeker with an overactive imagination. As for the Eldridge, the destroyer which may or may not have been made to disappear, she finished her war service in the Pacific. In January 1951, she was sold to the Greek government, renamed the Leon, and scrapped a few years later. But the legend persisted. In 1984, the so-called Philadelphia experiment was even the subject of a full-length feature film, with a sequel in 1991. In March 1999, 15 surviving members of the Eldridge's wartime crew met for a reunion in Atlantic City, New Jersey. All were highly amused about the continuing rumors that they'd been involved in a top-secret experiment. All denied any such thing, wondering why, out of all the US Navy ships, theirs had been the one singled out as the subject of such a wild story, especially since, as they all firmly pointed out, the Eldridge had never docked in Philadelphia at any time during the war. There's no doubt that the Second World War was a period of accelerated research, during which many previously unthinkable concepts, such as rocket travel, jet propulsion, and the military use of nuclear energy, became reality. But whether or not such research included making a ship vanish into thin air remains one of the 20th century's most compelling mysteries.